Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Maimuna Akhtar from School of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Jamia Hamdard. Here we are going to discuss about the module Instrumentation of Fluorescence Spectroscopy from paper Atomic Spectroscopy. After completing this module, you shall be able to understand what is spectrophlorimetry, how it is measured, what type of light sources are used, what is the importance and limitation of each and every source, how the instrument is calibrated, and other methods of detection and recording. Fluorescence is a process of emission of excess of light by molecules after they have absorbed light. Fluorescence is an immediate phenomenon, meaning it diminishes as soon as the incident light is stopped. During recording or analysis by fluorescence, the selection of spectral lines are important aspect, because if you do not select the spectral line properly, the result may vary. The fluorescence measurement means measurement of emission spectra of fluorophore, that is agent which releases their excess energy in the form of photons. In this module, we'll focus on instrumentation used for measurement of fluorescence. The success of fluorescence experiment demands attention to experimental details and an understanding of the instrument. It is possible to record both excitation as well as emission spectra with most of the spectrophlorometers. An emission spectrum is the wavelength distribution of an emission measured at a single constant excitation wavelength. Conversely, an excitation spectrum is the dependence of emission intensity measured at a single emission wavelength upon scanning the excitation wavelength. The spectra can be presented on either a wavelength scale, that is nanometer, or a wave number scale, that is centimeter inverse. Most commonly or commercially available instruments produce spectra on the wavelength scale because that are easier to interpret visually. Now, what is spectra and how to select a spectral line? It is difficult to obtain a corrected spectra. It is not that when you obtain a spectra that is the perfect spectra. We need to have some corrections before reading that spectra actually. And it's very difficult to obtain a corrected spectra. And as such, corrected spectra are not needed on a routine basis, however. So you can use a spectra which gives you roughly good understanding of the experiment. For an ideal instrument, the directly recorded emission spectra would represent the power emitted at each wavelength, or photon emission emitted at each wavelength, or photon emission rate over a wavelength interval determined by the slit width and dispersion of the emission monochromator. Similarly, the excitation spectrum represents the relative emission of the fluorophore at each excitation wavelength. Emission spectra recorded on different instruments can be different because of the wavelength dependent sensitivities of the instrument. In an ideal case, the recorded excitation and emission spectra would represent the relative photon intensity per wavelength interval. To obtain such corrected emission spectra, the individual components must have the following characteristics. That is, regarding the light source must yield a constant photon output at all wavelengths. The monochromator must pass photons of all wavelengths with equal efficiency and must be independent of polarizer. The detector or photomultiplier tube must detect photons of all wavelengths with equal efficiency. In graphs, you can see that the light source should have same wavelength. Monochromator should detect or pass with same efficiency at all wavelengths, and similarly photomultiplier tube must detect all wavelengths with the same efficiency. This slide shows you a schematic flow of various parts of spectrophlorometer. It starts from the source of light, the excitation monochromator, a slit, sample cell, another slit which is used to control the wavelength or select the wavelength, then emission monochromator. The selected wavelength is fed to the detector, followed by an amplifier and recorder. Various parts of spectrophlorimeter include source of light, monochromators, that can be excitation monochromators and emission monochromators, a sample cell, detectors, commonly photomultiplier detectors, an amplifier, and a recorder. Coming to source of light, various sources of lights are available, ranging from arc and incandescent xenon lamps to LED light source. Pulse xenon lamps have also been used, a wide variety of mercury lamps, including high-pressure mercury lamp, xenon mercury arc lamps, quartz tungsten halogen lamps, low-pressure mercury lamps, and mercury argon lamps have been used. And in addition, LED light source have also been used. First, arc and incandescent xenon lamp. These are the most versatile light source that are available. These provide a continuous light output from 250 to 700 nanometers and have number of sharp lines near 450 nanometer and above 800 nanometer. The advantage of these lamps is that they are ozone free. This is a picture of xenon arc lamp and a typical lamp housing. The xenon arc lamp is kept in housing, as in xenon lamp is under high pressure, that is roughly 10 atmosphere, and there are chances that it can explode. A xenon lamp that is on should never be observed directly. Pulse xenon lamps. They are same as above, except that it is pulsed. The peak intensity of the pulses is higher than that of the continuous arcs. The flash lamp consumes less power and generates less heat. It is useful for photolabile compounds. High pressure mercury lamps have also been used, but they are useful only if the mercury lines are at suitable wavelength for excitation. Higher intensities than xenon lamp, intensity concentrated in lines. It is better to choose the excitation wavelength to suit the fluorophore rather than vice versa. LED light source. A wide range of wavelengths are available with LEDs. They do not generate significant infrared and therefore does not need use of heat filters. The figure on right hand shows spectral output of light emitting diodes. A different color of light, or you can say wavelengths, can be produced by different diodes. So lasers are used as excitation source as they emit monochromatic radiations. The wavelength ranges from 405 to 1500 nanometers, and it is convenient. The output is easily focused and manipulated and can be pulsed or modulated conveniently. Of particular interest are tunable dye lasers pumped by a pulsed nitrogen gas laser. Monochromators. Monochromator is that part which is used to disperse polychromatic or white light into various colors or wavelengths. The spectral region depends on the size of the monochromator slit. Slits ranging from 0.025 mm to 4 mm with resolution ranging from 0.2 nanometer to 32 nanometer are available. Different monochromators have different dispersion factors. Smaller the slit, the higher will be the spectral resolution, with a two-fold reduction in each slit width, entrance or exit. Four-fold decrease in light intensity is observed. Dispersion in monochromators can be achieved by using prism or diffraction gratings. Commercial spectrophlorometers use differential gratings only. The performance specification of a monochromator includes dispersion, efficiency, and stray light levels. A monochromator for fluorescence spectroscopy should have low stray lights. The figure shows a diffraction grating with entrance slit, which comes in contact with a collimating mirror, wherein it is diffracted to a diffraction grating. It is then focused on a focusing mirror, and from there it is focused through exit slit. The monochromators can have planar or concave gratings. Planar gratings are produced mechanically, whereas concave gratings are produced by holographic and photoresist method. The stray light transmission and ghost images are due to imperfection of the gratings. So the monochromator with concave gratings are more efficient and lead to fewer reflection surfaces and leads to fewer reflecting surfaces, therefore lower stray light. The holographic gratings are preferable for fluorescence spectroscopy because of the same reason. Calibration of monochromators. It is not that we have bought a monochromator and it is used as such. Even if we use a simple instrument like thermometer, it is first checked for its accuracy and working. That means we first calibrate it. So therefore monochromators used in any kind of spectroscopy are first calibrated, and here the calibration of monochromator is done by using mercury argon lamp or low pressure mercury lamp, which provides a number of sharp lines. The lamp is held stationary with a block of metal holder with a pinhole on the side to allow a small amount of light to enter the emission monochromator. The precision of wavelength determination is increased or decreased by changing the slit width. The dominant mercury line are located using the emission monochromator. The wavelengths measured are then compared with the known values which are given in table. 3 or more lines of mercury are observed to be certain. A line is assigned the correct wavelength if the observed wavelength differ from the known value by a constant amount. Recalibration of the monochromator is done to obtain the coincidence. This slide shows a spectrum of a low pressure mercury argon lamp, where the blue region shows the spectra from the mercury and red region shows the spectra from argon. After calibrating the emission monochromator, the calibration of excitation monochromator is followed against the new standards that were developed. The slit is set to the small value on both the monochromators consistent with the available light intensity. A dilute suspension of fluidox or glycogen is placed in the cuvette holder to scatter the exciting light. The emission monochromator is set to some arbitrary wavelength. If the calibration of excitation monochromator has been properly done, then the maximum intensity of the scattered light is observed when the wavelength indicated are identical. The linearity of the wavelength scale can be determined by setting the emission monochromator at various wavelengths. Optical filters. Filters are used to compensate for the less than ideal behavior of monochromators. That means if something cannot be corrected by the monochromators, filters are used in addition. They are used to maximize the sensitivity when the spectral properties of a fluorophore are known. A large range of filters are available along the transmission spectra. On the right hand side, you can see the spectra of some filters like BG12, BG16, a range of other color filters WG305, GC395, 495, 590, RG695. Before the advances in thin film technology, colored glasses were used as filters as they can transmit a range of wavelength. You can see the part A. Whereas some color filters transmit all wavelengths above some particular wavelength, therefore are called long pass filters. You can see the part B of the figure, wherein you see WG305 to RG695. According to the colors, the filter are classified as BG blue glass, GG green glass, etc. Thin film filters. A wide variety of colored glasses are available, and with thin film filters, almost any desirable transmission can be obtained. That means if we combine a colored glass filter with thin film filter, the transmission in any range can be obtained. The filters are now being designed for specific application. For example, long pass filters have a sharp cut on the transmission above 325 nanometer or 488 nanometer. Wavelengths from helium, cadmium and argon ion laser respectively. The transmission above the cut on wavelength is close to 100% to provide maximum sensitivity. Filter combinations. If a single filter is not adequate for a given experiment, a combination of two or more bandpass filters can be used to obtain the desired spectral property. For example, WG 320 and UG11 filters are often used to isolate protein fluorescence. For probes emitting near 450 nanometer, a combination of Corning 372 and 496 filter is used. Filters should be selected not only for their ability to transmit the desired wavelength, but perhaps more importantly for their ability to reject possible interfering wavelength. Neutral density filters. To attenuate light equally at all wavelengths, neutral density filters are used. They are typically composed of sheet of glass or quartz coated with a metal to obtain the desired optical density. The name of filter set for microscopy are now often based on specific fluorophore rather than wavelength. Fluorescence microscopy is often performed using multiple fluorophores to label different regions of the cell, allowing the region to be identified by the emission wavelength. Emission filters have been designed to pass the emission from multiple fluorophores. For example, a filter designed to pass the emission from DAPI near 460 nanometer fluorescence and near 530 nanometer and for Texas Red at 630 nanometer can be developed. The availability of such filters has greatly expanded the capability of fluorescence microscopy. The important part after generating the light or selecting wavelength is how to detect them, whether we are detecting the correct wavelength or not. Most of the modern fluorometers use photomultiplier tubes for detection and quantification of the emitted light. And it is important to understand their capabilities and limitations, because not all photomultiplier tubes can be used in all kind of fluorometers. PMTs are based on the photoelectric effect, that is the ejection of electron from metallic surface when an incident light hits it. It was the theory for this effect developed by Albert Einstein, for which he was awarded Nobel Prize, and not his more famous theory of relativity. The original phototube were based on a simple arrangement to collect the emitted photoelectrons and produce an electrical current which could then be quantified. A PMT behaves as a current source and the current is proportional to the intensity of the incident light. A PMT responds to individual photon and the pulses can be detected as an average signal or counted as individual photons. This is a typical figure of photomultiplier tube. A photomultiplier tube is a vacuum tube that consists of a photocathode and a series of diodes, which are the amplification stages. The photocathode tube is a thin film of metal on the inside of the window. Incident photons cause electrons to be ejected from this surface. The generation efficiency of photoelectron is dependent upon the incident wavelength. The photocathode is held at high negative potential, typically between -1000 to -2000 volts. The diodes are also held at negative potential, but these potentials decrease towards zero along the diode chain. The potential difference between the photocathode and the first diode potential is generally fixed at a constant voltage by a Zener diode at a value ranging from -50 to -200 volts. This potential difference causes an ejected photoelectron to be accelerated towards the first diode. Upon collision with the first diode, the photoelectron causes ejection of 5 to 20 additional electrons, depending on the voltage difference to this diode. This process continues down the diode chain until a current pulse arrives at the anode. The size of this pulse depends upon the overall voltage applied to the PMT. Higher the voltage, higher is the number of electrons ejected from each diode, and hence higher amplification. For quantitative measurements, the anode current must be proportionate to the light intensity. A non-linear response can result from an excessive current being drawn from the photocathode. CCD detectors. CCDs have remarkable sensitivity and linear dynamic range, which is 10 to the power 6 or more pixels. To obtain a two-dimensional image, the charge at each pixel point can be read out when desired. Small spectrophotometers using CCDs are commercially available. They have good sensitivity and are conveniently interfaced via USB cable and have no moving parts. Can be converted to a solid state device by combining with an LED light source. So students, let's summarize what we have learned in this module. We have brushed up upon the basic principle, the instrument used for determination of fluorescence, the importance of various parts of the fluorometer, for example, light source, monochromator. We have discussed about the calibration of the monochromator, and we have also discussed upon the optical filters, various types of optical filters, how to combine optical filters to obtain a range of interest, and detectors to detect the light. Thank you.